Alright, what's going on, everybody? Thought I'd do something a little bit different in this video. So, I'm going to be covering the NFL draft in a few weeks, and also free agency as well. But I thought I'd list my top prospects by position and give casual fans a comparison for who someone reminds me of, so those that don't really watch college football can kind of get an idea of what a player might be like. I'm going to give an ultimate upside comparison. So if someone actually reaches their full potential and this is as good as they'll be. And then I'll give more of a safer comparison, someone which they're most likely to be like. All right, starting with quarterback here. My number one is Kaiser. So Kaiser, he's very tall. He's athletic. He has a good build on him. He's very tough. All right, next up we're going to be moving to running backs. So running backs here, it's pretty much going to be a two-horse race for who goes really top 15. It's going to be between Dalvin Cook and Leonard Fournett, and then you have Christian McCaffrey in the later rounds. So who do you got? You got Fournett or Cook going first?
I think probably Fournette, just because of all the comparisons he's getting, like all the popularity potentially is.
Yeah, I think.
Plus, isn't he way bigger than Cook too?
Yeah, he's a lot bigger. Fournette, he's kind of he's a rare combination of speed and power, and you rarely see that. The comparisons to Adrian Peterson are warranted. It's really there. You could see it in their play style. They have the same kind of weakness. They're catching, and they have more straight line speed than side to side speed. They have the same comparisons coming out of, or the same concerns coming out of school. They could have some wear and tear as running backs aren't really built to last that long. I think the ultimate upside comparison for Fournette is Adrian Peterson. A safe comparison is Priest Holmes, but with more speed. When healthy, he's going to be a fantastic guy for you. But I could see Fournette easily missing 2-3 games a year. But I think he still have a great career, and he's still worth taking a chance on a guy like that. He also has a little bit of Todd Gurley in him. I could see him playing like him, just a little bit faster. And then we have Dalvin Cook next. Dalvin Cook, he's more of a complete back. He can play all three downs. He's good. He's a great catcher. He can cut inside, outside. He could run any kind of offense. He's very patient too. Accounted for 90 missed tackles, an average 4.2 yards after contact. Fumbling could be a weakness. His first 2 years he had 7 fumbles, but his last year he only put it on the ground once. He also has a little bit of off the field issues too that he had to deal with. He's small too, 5'11", 205. He doesn't always run through tacklers. He gives himself up. Ultimate comparison for me is Marshall Faulk. A safe comparison is Chris Johnson. I mean, he's probably not going to get 2,000 yards in the season, but he could still finish with a career similar to Chris Johnson, rushing for 10,000 yards and 60 touchdowns. All right, next up we got receivers. There's a few good ones here. Number one for me is going to be Mike Williams. He's very tall. He could win one-on-one, but he does have some speed and drop issues. Ultimate comparison for him is a Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffery type. Safe comparison is Vincent Jackson. Next up, Corey Davis. He's also tall. He's not as big as Mike Williams. He's a great route runner, great hands. He also could win one-on-ones. Ultimate comparison for me is going to be Andre Johnson. Safe comparison is Muhsin Muhammad type. He had a good career though, Muhsin Muhammad. Up next, got John Ross. He's very, very fast, a big play threat. He needs to add weight, and he needs to improve his route running. Ultimate comparison for me is going to be Deshaun Jackson. A safe comparison is Mike Wallace. Next, we got O.J. Howard. I'll just throw him in there. He's 6'6", 240. He's improved every year. He's getting better at blocking. He is the leading blocker in college for tight ends. His weakness is still improving his route running. A comparison is a poor man's Gronkowski. And that's no knock on him. Gronkowski is a once-in-a-generation type player. A safe comparison is Martellus Bennett without the team chemistry issues. All right, up next is offensive lineman. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I don't think there is any franchise lineman in this draft. But I do feel like a few of them may be drafted early first round just because teams are going to need an offensive lineman they're going to reach. All right, we got Cam Robinson, who's very strong, good against the run and pass. Weakness is his quickness, and his technique could use a little bit of work. He could have problems against speed rushers, and he's proven he can do it against tough competition. He held Myles Garrett from getting a sack. He was also beat by Derek Barnett earlier, but then he settled down and finished with a good game. He could get bull rushed a few times too. Ultimate comparison for me is Ryan Clady. A safe comparison is a pretty good player from the Bucks, Donovan Smith, who's a young player too, but he struggled against speed rushers. Next, we got Ryan Ramczyk. He's 6'6", strong run blocker, solid against the pass, has very quick feet, but he could be beat on counter moves, and he needs to get stronger, but he hasn't reached his genetic peak yet, so he could get stronger. Weakness is he has to have surgery for torn labrum, so we'll see how that impacts his draft. I do think he'd be drafted ahead of Cam Robinson if he didn't have to do that surgery. Ultimate comparison for me is Andrew Whitworth. Safe comparison is Luke Jokel, who isn't a bad player at all, but he seems to get a bad rep because of where he's taken. Looking ahead to next year's draft, because Mike McGlinchey from Notre Dame, he decided to go back to school, but so did Will Fuller last year before he came out, so we don't know if he's coming out yet, but I think he's the closest thing to a franchise left tackle. All right, moving on to what I feel like is the deepest position in the draft, and that is going to be edge rushers. Now, I could just do what's the linebackers and DNs. I'm going to go with edge rusher here because these are guys I could feel like could play the 3-4 or 4-3 in their pass rushing specialists. At the top of the list, we have Myles Garrett, who's a freak, a fantastic first step, just so much potential. 31 sacks in 3 seasons. He's improved against the run, but he needs to learn how to string moves together, and he's too reliant on natural talent at some points, so he needs to learn to use his hands a little bit too. He's still a little raw. I mean, some people compare to Von Miller just because the school he went to and stuff like that, or Khalil Mack they compared him to. I don't think he's as complete as they are when they came out, so those comparisons are a little too steep for me. His ultimate upside to me is someone like Jason Taylor, who was similar at height, could play 3-4, 4-3, ton of sacks in his career. A safe comparison is Jason Pierre-Paul before he hurt his hand. All right, up next we got Derek Barnett, who has great hands, good footwork, arguably best pass rusher in a draft, but he still needs to improve against the run and in the open field. He needs signature moves. He's too reliant on just a speed rush at times, and he's a little bit shorter, so his reach isn't that long. He's 6'2". He's more suited for outside linebacker rather than DN, so that's what separates him from Garrett. Ultimate upside would be Elvis Dumervil. Safe comparison is Sean Phillips. Up next we have Charles Harris, who's fantastic with his hands as well. He's great at chasing down running backs and quarterbacks. His weakness is he needs to polish up his footwork and his lower hips. He needs to get a little bit lower. And he needs to improve against the run if he plays a 4-3. He reminds me a lot of a mix between Ryan Kerrigan and Brian Arapko. All right, up next we got D lineman. The guy that stands out most is Jonathan Allen, who's fantastic against the run or pass. He's a sneaky athlete. He could play 3-4, 4-3, any position on the line. Weakness for him really is that he played with a stacked defense, so we don't know how good he really can be by himself. Ultimate comparison for me is Jarrell Casey. A safe comparison is someone like Cam Hayward. Next up, we have Carl Lawson, who's a great rusher. He's not that great against the run. Only stopped 4.5% of runs to the side. Very strong with quick hands. So it's kind of surprising he isn't better against the run because he is very strong. It could be lack of technique or effort. So he may come in as just a pass rush specialist, similar to Leonard Floyd or Alden Smith. Depends on how fast he develops, if he could develop into an every down player. He does have some injury concerns. Ultimate comparison for me is Cameron Wake. Safe is someone like Jason Babin. All right, now we're going to be moving on to linebackers here. And I mean, believe it or not, I actually don't have Reuben Foster as my number one linebacker. But we'll just start with him just because I think he's going to be the first one taken. So, strengths, he's strong against the run. He's a full three down linebacker. He can cover running backs. He could stay with a little bit of tight ends. But he's better moving forward than backward, so he needs to improve his zone D. Ultimate comparison for him is a I guess, a poor man's mix of Luke Kuechly and Patrick Willis, just not as fast. And then a safe comparison is someone like Brian Cushing, who would have had a fantastic career if it was not for injuries. All right, moving on to Tim Williams. Tim Williams, he's probably going to be a outside linebacker, a pass rusher. He's very efficient at pass rushing. He's pressured the quarterback amazing 26% of pass blitzes. He could evolve into an every down player. He has the talent to do so, but it's just going to come down to effort and work. He's improved run defense this year, but he hurt his stock with off-the-field issues, carrying a gun without a permit. He's also failed some drug tests. I mean, it's college. Everybody parties. Everybody does drugs, stuff like that. But they feel that his issues may border substance abuse, similar to Randy Gregory, who slipped in the draft. And we see how Randy Gregory's career came out. So, I mean, if he stays clean, I think a great comparison for him is Ziggy Ansah. And if he doesn't stay clean, I'd say someone like Greg Hardy. And then lastly, we have who I think has the most potential in the draft is Zachary Cunningham. When you watch Zach Cunningham, he covers so much ground. He's one of those new hybrid-style linebackers where they're kind of safety linebacker hybrids and they're just so fast. But he's not only just a fast guy that could tackle, he's very strong too. He could shed linemen even though he has a slender build on him. And he's fantastic covering. I think an ultimate comparison for him is Bobby Wagner. A safe comparison is someone like Ryan Shazier. All right, moving on to another deep position is corner. We're going to start with Jalen Tabar, fantastic route runner, great height. He beats receivers throughout routinely. He gets an interception or a pass breakup on 26% of his targets. He's very fast hands, great timing, never really gets penalties. His weakness, though, is he could get beat on double moves. He gets a little greedy, but you have to live with the gambling part of him forcing a turnover. Ultimate comparison, Antonio Cromartie. A safe comparison is Kyle Fuller. Up next, we got Marlon Humphrey, who's fantastic balance of height, speed, coverage as well. He locked up Juju Smith. He has issues playing the ball in the air, so he's going to need to improve that, and he needs to learn to take more chances and try to go for the interception rather than being conservative. Ultimate comparison for him is someone like Xavier Rhodes. A safe comparison is Sham Shields. Next, we have Condrea Tinkersley. He can do it all. Great length, shutdown corner. Picked off 4 passes, allowed 46% of attempts to be completed to the side, 40 QBR. Safe comparison is Byron Maxwell. Ultimate comparison is Aqib Talib because he could lock up tight ends. I'd like to mention Desmond King too, who's a great tackler. He could be more of a safety in the NFL. So ultimate comparison for him is Devin McCourty. Safe is older version D'Angelo Hall. And then Jordan Lewis, who's a small corner, but he's only allowed 36% of passes to be completed to the side. He might struggle against tall receivers, so an ultimate comparison for him is Vontae Davis. A safe comparison is Brent Grimes. All right, and lastly, we get to safeties, which is a very interesting position because we don't know who's going to go where. Do you go with the potential in Malik Hooker, who covers so much ground, fantastic tackler, great size, a once-in-a-generation type talent, or the way he covers ground, only a few people ever could do that. He does need to work on his tackling a little bit, though, but he is a game changer just because of his range. Ultimate comparison is actually Sean Taylor with less speed and less hit power, and that's lofty comparisons. A safe comparison is, again, Eric Berry with just less speed and less hit power. Next, I do believe Hooker has the most potential out of all the safeties. The best safety right now is Jamal Adams. He can do it all. Fantastic athlete, very, very, very smart, great instincts, deadly in zone coverage. He's a leader. He can play at the line of scrimmage, play in the secondary, cover tight ends, stick with some slot receivers. And he's a sure tackler, converting 167 out of 191. And he does hit hard, though, but he does wrap you up. I'd like to see him be a better playmaker. Only 1 interception this past season. But we've seen with someone like Landon Collins, you can improve your play. Ultimate comparison for him is Troy Polamalu. A safe comparison is Landon Collins. I do see a lot of Landon Collins in him. Lastly, we have Jabril Peppers, which I don't know where he's going to play. He's not going to play corner. He's more of a safety or a linebacker, but he's too small to play linebacker. He's an elite athlete, great returner, a willing tackler, versatile. His versatility and his Heisman candidacy might make him move up in the draft. Some weakness, though. He needs to work on his technique and footwork. He could be caught in coverage sometimes flat-footed. He needs to gain size, and he'd like to see him be a better playmaker, as he only had 1 interception, I think, in his career, and only forced 1 fumble this year. But I think that's because he's moving around so much, so he doesn't really have as much chances. Ultimate comparison is honey badger